Recently, Ukraine's counter-offensive operations against the Russian army have suffered consecutive failures, and it is even considered that its counter-offensive operations have died up due to heavy losses in equipment and personnel. In order to support the Kiev authorities, the U.S. government decided to approve the supply of cluster bombs banned by the Oslo Convention to Ukraine, which caused a storm of public opinion internationally. A cluster bomb is often filled with dozens or even hundreds of small bombs, and each small bomb can be broken into hundreds or even thousands of fragments. For example, the M864 155mm submunition supported by the U.S. is loaded with 72 armor-piercing and anti-personnel dual-purpose submunitions, which can produce 6,000 fragments after explosion. Therefore, cluster munitions have the effect of indiscriminately and efficiently killing large areas. Moreover, cluster munitions have a certain failure rate, that is, dud bombs. These unsuccessfully detonated bombs can remain for years, and then suddenly explode at inadvertent moments, which is extremely dangerous. It poses a great danger to civilians and is therefore banned in more than 100 countries. In view of the enormous lethality of the cluster bombs approved by the United States for Ukraine, it may bring subversive changes to the situation of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Therefore, according to a report from the Global Network, in response to the Biden administration's approval of providing cluster bombs to the Ukrainian army, the Russian ambassador to the United States Antonov warned that the level of provocation by the United States has exceeded the limit and will bring mankind closer to a new world war. Antonov emphasized in an interview with the media that the supply of weapons to Ukraine by the United States will not have any impact on the realization of the goals of Russia's special military operations. Regarding the issue of the United States providing cluster bombs to Ukraine, Bondarev, chairman of the Russian Federal Defense Council, also warned that the use of cluster bombs is a form of terrorist warfare, and Russia will respond based on military rationality. For this reason, Moscow hopes that the international community will give due assessment. Many Russian politicians have issued stern warnings one after another, apparently to remind the United States and its NATO allies that once the US-made cluster bombs are sent to the Ukrainian battlefield and cause huge damage to the Russian army, then it is not ruled out that the Russian army will use some unconventional means to deal with this situation, including the possibility of using more lethal weapons, or even tactical nuclear weapons, as a means of response. Therefore, Antonov warned the West that this may trigger a new world war. However, these warnings from Russia did not have a great deterrent effect on the United States and NATO. After all, Russia has raised too many warnings and threats since the start of the war. In addition, the so-called Convention on the Prohibition of Cluster Bombs has not been signed by Russia, the United States, or Ukraine. Moreover, since the beginning of the war, the Russian army has been using cluster munitions in large quantities. Therefore, it seems that the unilateral ban on Ukraine's use of cluster munitions does not seem to be convincing. From a military point of view, in this major counteroffensive supported by the United States, the possibility of Ukraine's complete victory no longer exists. However, the Biden administration's provision of such weapons of mass destruction to Ukraine is not to reverse the war situation between Russia and Ukraine, but to increase confidence in Ukraine. After all, for Biden himself, he must increase the winning chips for the United States in this gamble of the Russia-Ukraine conflict before the end of the 2024 general election, otherwise he will be criticized by his political opponents for losing the war with Russia. German Foreign Minister Baerbock recently pointed out that as an ally of the United States, the German government opposes the supply of cluster bombs to Ukraine by the United States. In addition, NATO countries such as France and the United Kingdom have also recently expressed their opposition to the United States providing cluster bombs to Ukraine. Even Biden's Democratic Party resisted his extreme approach. Dozens of Democratic lawmakers have warned Biden that supplying Ukraine with cluster bombs is a terrible mistake because it will cause suffering, death, and costly cleanup for Ukrainians for generations to come. Then, the Ukrainian side issued a statement that the Ukrainian army will abide by the 5 key principles of using cluster bombs, with the purpose of doing its utmost to reduce the impact of such bombs on civilians and the environment. However, Ukraine's self-restraint measures are actually difficult to strictly enforce. Cluster munitions are not magic weapons on the battlefield, and will not have a significant impact on the overall trend of the Russo-Ukrainian war. One or two weapons and equipment cannot play a decisive role in the direction of war. Finally, if you have any different views on this video, please leave a message to discuss in the comment area below.
As the last ship sailed towards the distant horizon, I sat there watching on a rock, my mind slowly drifting away, forming